Hey, hello there, Untamed television fans. I am your host, Craig Bielig, just like the words say, right down there. And it is my pleasure today to be joined by Mark Adams. Mark Adams is I got it right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're off to a good start. Because I get the names wrong sometimes. Mark is a licensed marriage and family therapist working up at Weber State. Is that correct? Or no, you're a professor at Weber State.
Professor at Weber State, so I teach family-related courses.
Right.
And then I have a private practice.
You have a practice on the side. And you help people deal with marriage issues, family issues, just like it says, right?
Yeah, and then even general mental health issues, anxiety, depression, trauma.
Right. And an expanding field from what I hear lately, right?
Yeah.
Growing.
Yeah. There's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of need.
Well, and we're in a much more complicated world than we used to be. I mean, even if you have a happy marriage and all that sort of thing, there's news stressors, there's social media, there's busy schedules, there's cell phones and texts, and I'm always in trouble with my wife for not returning her texts.
Yeah.
And so that's something that didn't exist 25 years ago.
No, I think, and that's part of it. The pace of life is just can be so intense.
Right.
For parents, for kids, for families, and pulling them in lots of different directions, and eventually it takes a toll.
It sure does, on almost everybody.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess I'm going to start off with a pretty vague question, and hopefully you can kind of put a fine point on it, and that is, how do you know when it's time for your services? I mean, my wife and I fight, every 10 minutes. No, we actually, I've been married 33 years.
Oh, congratulations.
And have done, I think, a pretty good job.
Yeah.
But how would I know? How would I know when this was a fight or when this was something more?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that can be hard because that line might be a little different for everybody. But in general, when things start to spill over and cause problems, maybe at work, causing financial problems, or causing problems in other relations. So when you start having functioning problems in other areas, that's often an indicator that you're not managing that very well. In marriage, I mean, that can be tricky because obviously you've got two people.
Yeah.
And one person's threshold, right? How much they can accept or deal with or work with might be different than their partner's. And so when one person is saying, "Oh yeah, we fight," but it's not that bad and it's not that often, that probably is true for that person, but their spouse may feel like it's too often and too intense and unbearable.
Too much, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember a friend of mine told me, we were talking about this very subject, and he was saying, well, my wife thinks we need to go to counseling, but I don't think we need to go. There's just no way that we need to go to counseling. And I said, and I'm not in your job, but I said, to me, it's 50-50, and if she wants to go, you probably should go. I mean, because that's a good indicator that something's wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
I think absolutely. And it's funny you say 50-50. I often teach couples, my perception is that marriage is 100-100.
Oh, right.
That I'm 100% responsible for my half of the marriage.
Oh, that's a different way of looking at it.
Because then if I bring 100% of myself to my marriage, then even if my wife's having an off day and she's only operating at 70%, there's still 170% cumulative effort.
Right. That's good.
And for me, that comes to this important distinction between, okay, so my wife is struggling. I have to decide whether I respect and validate that and consider it or not. Because the risk of dismissing that, if my belief is that, our marriage isn't that bad, we don't need help, we can figure this out, and my wife's saying, no, it's pretty bad, it only takes one person to file for divorce.
Oh, good point.
I mean, it takes two.
There you go.
It takes two people to consent to create a marriage contract, but it only takes one person to end that relationship.
Wow, that's really interesting and good way to look at it. So, Mark, when a couple does enter your office, where do you start? I mean, what are some of the ways? What are some of the ways you start to kind of figure this out? Because it's complicated, and I'm sure it's he said, she said, literally.
Oh,
right?
Always, always, and along those lines, I mean, there's always three sides to every story, right? He said, she said, and then there's actually what happened.
And I probably should say that marriage now can also be she said, and he said, he said.
That's
right?
exactly right.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
But where do you start?
Well, unfortunately, all too often, unfortunately, when couples end up in my office, it's often the last resort.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I'll have lots of couples that will say to me, we've tried this, we've read books, we met with our ecclesiastical leader, we've had these people give us advice. If you can't save this, we're done.
Oh, no pressure there.
Right?
Yeah, they just come in. Hey, you got to fix this, buddy.
Right. This is a last-ditch effort.
Oh,
and
that's
so
hard.
often couples really are in a state of crisis. Their relationship's in a state of crisis by the time they get some help from somebody that has professional experience and specific training in working with couples, rather than, some of the mental health professionals have training to work specifically with individual people, and having two people or more than two people, kids, working with families, having more than one person in a room complicates the dynamics and the therapeutic process. And so it is tricky, but for the most part, establishing a good relationship with the couple. I'm a pretty open person, so
seems like it.
I try to have some give and take, and tell me about yourself. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Often that first appointment for me is often like interviewing somebody to come and remodel your home.
Really?
Kind of the metaphorically I say that.
Yeah.
If you have a vision of what you want your bathroom to look like at the end, but the contractor you hired has a different vision.
Yeah.
That's not gonna work out real well.
Right.
So that first appointment often is like an interview.
Right.
Right, where I encourage my clients to interview me. Ask me about how I work. What are my beliefs about how change happens? Those kinds of things. How does intimacy and connection work versus separation and individual identities?
Right.
Because healthy relationships are based on a balance, where we can connect with our partner or connect with somebody without losing our personal identity.
Wow.
But then we can also be separate from that relationship and unique without threatening the relationship. And that's a tricky balance, because it's never the same for any one couple, but every couple has to find that particular balance for them.
Well, and then you've got to find it again about every year, because everybody changes.
Right.
Children enter the picture, you get a new job. Somebody gets gray hair and they're not as good looking as they once were.
Or better looking than they once were.
Thank you, Mark. That's so nice of you. But no, I mean, this is not a finished product at any point.
Right.
And the recipe's never the same.
Right. It can't be.
Right.
Otherwise, you're living an outdated relationship.
Right. Right. So when people come to you, and I imagine, like you said, some of them come in and say, you got to fix this. But I imagine some will also come in and say, I love this person and I don't want anything to happen, but I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to fix this. I don't want to trade in. I want to repair this car and keep going. I love it,
Sure. That for some couples, simple communication skills, right? Learning to be more effective listeners, or to minimize. There's a new phrase out, maybe you've heard it. It's called flubbing.
Flubbing?
Flubbing.
Is that like that old movie, Son of Flubber or something like that?
So evidently it refers to phone snubbing.
Oh,
so when someone's talking to you, right, and you're on your phone and they're talking, so you're kind of snubbing them with
you're flubbing.
Flubbing, evidently.
And
so
I know that
these electronics and media and the internet and all that can really help people connect, but it can also be a wedge for a lot of people. So learning skills, learning to identify problems can be some of the simpler answers for couples, but often couples that have been married for a while get into patterns. of doing things.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
patterns that are pretty autopilot for them. They don't really think about what they're doing.
Right.
Right? They're just doing what they've always done. And because a lot of those patterns operate at a lower level of awareness for people, a lot of what I do with couples is try to identify those patterns, bring them to the surface so that the couple can be more aware of how they interact with each other, so that, you know, he dismisses his husband, and so then the other partner reacts by taking a deep breath,
exasperated,
and then his partner says, "What?"
Right.
And the other partner says, "Nothing." And so they're just feeding off of potentially nothing.
Right.
So finding those patterns and helping couples tweak them so that they can create different outcomes.
Right.
Changing their patterns.
I just can't not even imagine what you go through, and it boggles my mind just sitting here listening to all this and realizing how complicated it all is. But you have success, right?
Oh yeah, it's so much fun.
I mean, besides, people have probably been watching this for the last 10 minutes going, oh, you know, but it works, or it can.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When people decide they want it to work, and then they put the effort into it, it actually can work fairly quickly.
Right. We just, not to interrupt, but we just flashed a number on the screen right there where people could potentially get in touch with you if they feel like they need help.
Sure.
And if you do, please give him a call.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let him take a look at it, and also understand, I'm putting words into your mouth, that,
I'll spit 'em out.
these are complicated issues.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can't call him up and say, how many visits is this going to take? Because it might
Right.
take 4, might take 40. I mean, something like that.
Sometimes.
Yeah, something like that. But get some help. I mean,
Oh, please.
If you're
Please.
in a relationship, not just marriage, right?
Right.
A relationship.
Yeah, I work with kids, parents, young kids, adult children. Trying to work through problematic parent-child relationships, pre-marriage, roommates,
all that
really
stuff.
all of it. Grandparents.
Oh yeah, there's a whole one that I didn't think about. I have grandchildren, so we're there. Yeah, don't suffer. I mean, there are tools, there are ways to help you. It might be much easier than you think, and let Mark give you a hand.
So it might not be easy, but it often is very simple. Right, changing some of those things in our relationships often really are simple things, as in not complicated.
Right.
But often they're intensely difficult.
Right. Just a personal experience, I do a lot. I mean, I do a lot in the community, and I do a lot of things like this, and it drives my wife kind of crazy because she's not like this. And one of the things that helped us was we put a calendar in the kitchen where I write everything I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then there's also an understanding that she's not expected to do that. I mean, she doesn't have to come along or anything like that.
Yeah.
But here's my calendar. This is what I'm doing. We go over it weekly. I say, Thursday I'm doing this, Thursday I'm doing that,
Sure.
kind of thing. One little simple thing that helped us.
Yeah.
One simple little thing.
Absolutely. And I imagine that as long as she had an idea of where she fit,
Right.
and that she was a priority,
Right.
then she could relax.
Oh, that's right. I need to remind
and not
her.
compete.
Honey, you're a priority. You really are. Even though I'm doing this right now, I would rather be with you.
And the things that we protect are the things we cherish.
Right.
So when we protect that relationship time, so I mean, pretty simple example of simple change. There's a lot of times people say, "Oh, you got to do date night, right? You got to do date night. Try to do it once a week, or try to do it, a couple times a month. You got to do date night." Well, that's important.
Yeah.
But when date night gets postponed because of a sporting event, or date night gets postponed because of this or that, then sometimes
that becomes a stressor.
Sometimes
right?
it might become reflective of it's not important.
Right.
And things come up, right? I mean, you got to be flexible and
Sure.
But
Sure.
often we don't prioritize our relationships, and especially that face to face. Turn everything else off. Just kind of remind ourselves what the other person looks like,
Right.
and make those connections.
Right. Well, we could go on all day, and unfortunately,
Easy.
Mark has clients and other things that he needs to attend to. But
Yep.
this is Mark Adams, again, a licensed marriage and family therapist. There's the phone number right there. Don't suffer. Let him help you.
Please.
Get on it. It's the best thing you will ever do. What is it? The worst reconciliation is better than the best divorce.
Well, that's what the research shows too.
Yeah.
2 years post-divorce, individuals report they wished that they'd stayed married. That it was
Wow.
easier. The bad marriage was easier than being. Now that's not true
Wow.
for everybody, but even if I can't help, because it has to be a really good fit. There are so many mental health professionals in the community that are well trained and very effective at working with really anything that's out there. And so calling any of the mental health professionals is a good first step. Sometimes the best thing that you can get from that first phone call is a referral or a recommendation to somebody else who has a training and expertise to best fit the problem that you're facing.
Right. Well, you've been watching Untamed TV with your host, Craig Bielik, and my guest, Mark Adams, who's been talking about helping people in crisis in relationships, and it can be done, and you should be doing it right now if there's a problem. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
See you next time, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
coming in.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. You and I got to talk, though. I mean, man to man.
Okay. I'll start the clock.
All right. Good enough.